Specialized has been making bicycle tires since 1976. That's actually 3 years before they made their first bicycle frame. Now, this all coincided roughly with the beginning of mountain biking as a sport, largely agreed to have started in Specialized's home state of California. A few years later, they made their first mass-produced mountain bike, the Stump Jumper, and the rest is history. Now, tires have continued to be a large part of Specialized's business. The Hillbilly and the Butcher, which I have here, have been in their lineup since the turn of the century. Over the years, they have continued to refine all of their tires, and with a few recent advancements in both tread compounds and casings, they are a serious contender for tires to look at. Let's check them out. The biggest change that Specialized has made is to introduce 3 new tire compounds. These are the rubber compounds that give us our grip and traction characteristics. Now, it retains the old Gripton name, but bears no resemblance to the old singular Gripton compound that they used. They have now, like I said, divided into 3, T5, T7, and T9. Now, the higher the number, the higher the grip, the lower the durability of the rubber compound. So, for example, T5 is what they use in their cross-country oriented tires, which we actually won't be talking about today, whereas the T7 that you'll see here and the T9 on this Hillbilly are higher grip, lower hardness rubbers. The T7 is what they bill as sort of their do-it-all kind of trail enduro compound. It has good grip traits as well as high, relatively high durability, and especially in these types of applications is used as a back tire, whereas their T9 compound is their softest rubber and works really well in the wet when you really need as much traction as you can get, and especially on front tires. The other change that Specialized has made is to introduce new casings. That's what the materials that are inside of your tire and give it its structure and rigidity. The 2 I'll focus on today are called Grid Trail, which they offer all of these tires in. That's designed for, again, trail and enduro applications and is sort of a good middle ground of stiffness and puncture resistance, but still giving you a good trail feel. That's 1 60 thread per inch layer in there with extra puncture protection added in, and their Grid Gravity. That's a full-on downhill casing that uses 2 60 thread per inch or TPI layers in there, is a much stiffer sidewall and offers the most puncture resistance. Now let's take a look at some of Fanatik's favorite tires from the Specialized lineup, starting with the Butcher. This is a tire that has actually been around in some form or another since the early 2000s. In the most recent changes, Specialized has actually made the side knobs quite a bit larger and more supported so that you get that good aggressive cornering feel. And to aid with that, they have made the space in between the center knobs and the side knobs a little bit smaller, so you get a more predictable transfer as you enter into the corner. This is a tire that is basically a direct competitor to the Maxxis DHR. You can see the similar aggressive cornering knobs as well as horizontally laid out center knobs that are going to give you a lot of good braking. As such, and because it not only makes for a good front tire but also a rear tire, especially for more aggressive biking, they offer this in a couple different compounds, both their T7 and the softer T9, as well as different casings. They offer it in the Grid Trail, which I've mentioned, as well as the Grid Gravity if you want something more supportive. You can run this in 2.3 like I've got on my following here, or a big old 2.6 if you really like a lot of meat up on that front tire. Now, if you want something a little faster rolling but with similar aggressive traits, maybe something for a little harder packed terrain, the Eliminator is what you want to run. This has very similar side knobs to that Butcher, as you can see here, but the center knobs are quite a bit smaller and a little bit more evenly spaced. So they have some similarities, horizontal layout, but as you can see with this part of it, there's less space in between, so you get a faster rolling tire. As we'll talk about in a moment, I paired this Eliminator in the back of my following there with a Butcher up front. It is offered in the T7 compound, so it's a little harder compound that'll last a bit longer, great for a back tire. They also make one in a T7/T9 dual compound, so you get the harder or longer wearing characteristics in the center and a little bit more grip as you enter the corners. Now, a T9 Butcher and a T7 Eliminator is actually what I've been running on my Evil following here since July. So I've actually gotten a pretty good taste of how these tires perform, both in really dry, dusty conditions as well as the slop, wet, muddy rain that we have right now. Now, they're both in the grid trail casing, and they replaced Schwalbe knobby nicks in their in their super trail casing. I use the Addicts soft compound for the Schwalbes. One thing I noticed, these tires are about 100 grams lighter a piece than those Schwalbes, and I have had to run 3 to 4 PSI more in these tires to prevent any squirmy feeling. That does mean, at least when I first changed, I felt a little bit less traction possibly because of the harder, more PSI in there. But after that first ride, it's not something I've noticed at all. And given the great grip of the rubber itself, as well as the good wearing traits I've had especially on this back tire, I've been really, really happy with these. When you consider that a set of tires from Schwalbe or Maxxis will oftentimes cost $40 to $60 more than this set of tires right here, that's pretty incredible. You'll see the tan walls that I have here as well. These are called their soil searching tires, and a portion of these proceeds from these tan wall tires goes to this program that Specialized has, their soil searching program, which actually gives back to the trail building communities all over the world. You can check their website to learn a bit more about that. Now, the last tire I wanted to look at in Specialized lineup is their Hillbilly. You've seen that here. It's approaching a mud spike, but not quite. Honestly, it's quite similar to Schwalbe's Magic Mary, which is something that has been a favorite of mine come wintertime around here for a long, long time. I've had a number of coworkers tell me that this thing is just as good, and like I said, substantially less expensive. So now that they're offering it in their T9 soft rubber compound for those wet conditions, I'm absolutely going to be giving it a try. In terms of differences to the Schwalbe, you'll see that the knobs are actually a bit sharper. They have very similar spacing in between, not as much of a differentiation between the center knobs. These alternate between 2 and 3, whereas these are all 2 knobs in the center. And these actually don't have the same ramping that does. Not that we're worried about rolling resistance on a tire like this, but I suspect that this will actually grip or bite into the ground a little bit better than a Magic Mary. Like I said, they offer it in their T9 and T7 compounds, both a 2.3 and a 2.6, and their grid trail and grid gravity. Because the grid trail is not quite as durable as something, or stiff as something like a Exo Plus or even the Super Trail, I would say for more gravity-oriented bikes, especially in rocky places that you're liable to poke a hole in a tire, I would run the gravity version of this tire, at least in the back. If you're running a tire insert like Kashkor or something like that, probably not as much of a deal breaker, but I personally, even on my aggressive trail bikes, like to run a thicker casing on the rear tire. Now, I'm curious if you have tried any of Specialized's new tire compounds, because they really are quite a bit better than the previous generation from Specialized. If you have, do let us know in the comments below, or if you have any questions, give us a holler. I'm happy to answer them. If you like watching these videos, please do subscribe to our channel. We like making them, and getting more subscribers helps us justify that. Now, thanks for watching, y'all. We'll see you next time.